So it's Tuesday, August 20th, 2019. It's 6:01 p.m. And tonight we're going to have David with us. Art, I see you're on here. Is Tess going to join us by phone or anything? I don't know. Art will answer when he can. So you guys may have noticed that I had this up on the screen earlier. And so when we look at the term residency, one of the evidences of residency, one of the things that ties you to that layer is right here in D. This is California Vehicle Code 516. I'm sure it's the same for all states because all these kinds of things will tie you to residency. Sometimes there are exceptions, and I'd be very interested in anyone knows of an exception within their state, but on the whole, schools are kept impacted, and as a result, you have to establish residency before they will allow your children to attend. And so it is a huge element that keeps us tied to residency, and residency keeps us tied to the other contracts and is a way of giving them control and consent. You're literally, you know, in the same way that you'd be registering your car in the DMV, you are registering your kids into the school system, and it is not the system that you want them to be in. So tonight we have David Rodriguez. He has an amazing solution, a potential solution for people out there who want to get out of residency, want to step out of the system. They may have other reasons. Some of the other reasons may be forced vaccines. How about mandatory service in the military? You know, when you're required to signing up for the draft. So that's some of the things that actually occurs because of the school system. So if your kid is not in the school system, generally your kid will not be harassed into signing up for the draft. So, and there could be a million other reasons, such as it's a crappy education anyway, and I'm sure David's going to go over some of those things. So I want everyone to welcome David. Go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself, David?
Yeah, so Jackie, thanks for letting me come on your show and meet some of your audience members and community members. I am the principal of Valor Academy, which is a virtual school, which focuses on apprenticeships, internships, and accelerated graduations. And this is something you can do in California. I don't know where your community's from. Some of the people here are from my homeschool leader Facebook group, which you're welcome to join. It's a private group. We have over 1,500 members now. And I'm actually publisher of the Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto. That's volume 1. And the short story is I got in business with him, inspired by his 5-hour epic interview from 2014, I think it was. And yep, you got the book there. Beautiful. Yep. Thank you. And so what who he is, he was a 2-time state teacher of the year in New York. And so he spent 30 years out there in New York, and his classroom had so much productivity, so much impact in the community that when you get voted for Teacher of the Year, the community votes you into that position. They select you and they vote you. So anyways, I was able to work with him, and you know, thankfully he lived a good life and he passed away last year. And so we're carrying on that tradition. And so through this conversation, we want to show parents and guardians and grandparents, whoever else is out there, that the solution is to remove your child from the school system. Why? Well, number 1, forced vaccines. Number 2, the curriculum is terrible. Number 3, the design of the school system, which John Gatto proved with documentation dated back to the 1800s. The design, the purpose is to create obedient workers, citizens, consumers, and then specifically the military. And so, as you might be aware of, there's a military-industrial complex. So humans are loving beings by birth. You look at a baby's eye, you see love, you see joy, you see hope, but they're trained to kill people. And of course, there's plans for a global state through the United Nations, which, you know, we can talk about that if you want. So I got to business with him. I started an expo, the Education Options Expo. You can see the YouTube channel, it's Education Options TV. Just seeing what kind of schools are out there, what kind of schools exist. Because I went to the public school system, and you can put in the comments if the chat's open. Did you guys go to public school? What did you get from the school system? Well, for 12 years, I learned about the compulsion, the mandates, the force. You got to get permission to go to the bathroom. And so we want to help you remove your child from the school system because, as Gatto said, the system is not reformable because there's other protection mechanisms, such as the teachers union. The National Education Association has 3 million members, the largest political union in the country. And if you ask any politician, they are a force to be reckoned with. So we probably can't change the system overnight, but it's a generational mission that I'm on to just help as many parents get their kids out of the school system. And then the challenge that I experienced, I'm also a consultant for homeschooling families, is there's a lot of fear that you might have as a parent. One, can you do it? One, or the second part is, will you ruin your child's life? What are your friends going to say? What are your families going to say? And it's very nerve-wracking, you know? So I've had people attend my expos for years and they say, man, it took me like 2 or 3 years to get the courage. And so I realized it's one of the scariest decisions you'll ever make in your life. And so we're trying to compress that learning curve and that basically the confidence curve, you know? So that's a little bit about myself. And I want to empower you to the best of my ability. And so what I'll give you off the bat here is, first of all, homeschooling is legal in all 50 states. Some countries it's still illegal, and it used to be illegal in the United States as well. Why? Because the state, in my research and experience, is a coercive organization. It's a criminal organization based on theft, intimidation, threats, and violence. And I'm sure everyone on this call and everybody watching this video is a peaceful, moral person. This is also known as a voluntarist or voluntarist. Some people call it anarchist. Whatever it is, the moral relationship is voluntary. So how does this relate to school? In school, they use coercion threats. This is the mandatory attendance, mandatory curriculum. The sex ed curriculum is just off the hook right now. It's unbelievable, the vaccines. So in my school, Valor Academy, there's 2 principles in which I teach in the beginning. Number 1 is the world is the classroom. And that's my position. You can take it as the classroom curriculum, but aren't we learning now? We're not doing this for grades. We're not doing this for approval. We're doing this because we want to learn. And that's actually real life. So the world is the classroom, whether it's in your home or at the park or at a friend's house or at your business or in the car, you know, whatever it might be. There's so many different places where the world is the classroom. That's the first principle. The second principle is that anybody and anything you can learn from can be a teacher. So it doesn't have to be a credentialed person or an official person. But if your younger child speaks some wisdom to you, they're being your teacher in that moment. Or if the grumpy the neighbor next door speaks some truth to you or gives you some lesson, or maybe it's just between you and yourself, and maybe you get in a car accident someday and you're learning from yourself, and whether you believe in a higher power or not, there's moments where we learn lessons in humility and health and all these things. So those are the 2 principles that I teach parents to start beginning to understand. Because if you went through the forced schooling system, as in this moment, or we're in August now, so September, next, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, there's going to be 50 million children mandated by state law to be in these dank, disgusting, uninspiring buildings. Okay, these are by mandatory attendance policy worldwide. It's over 600 million children in these forced schools. So a very large institution. And if you went through that, then you have the conditioned mind that I'm unlearning as well. And the bell's ringing, right? We get distracted, But in a real education, what do we need? We need focus and concentration, because if we can't focus, if your child can't focus, then are they going to be able to learn anything? No. But so let me start at the beginning, because I don't want to get you caught up in all of the how-tos. Okay, the how-tos will come. How did you learn to walk? You don't remember. You just did it. Your mom and dad was there saying, hey, you can do it. You fall down. It's okay. You can do it. And maybe you walked at 10 months or 12 or 15 months or 24 months or whatever it is. But you, as a baby, you have that natural relentlessness to persist. How did you learn to talk? Not by a textbook, not by grades and tests or standards, evaluations by strangers. It was loving people around you. Oh, say mama, dada, right? These basic little baby steps. And so this is the model of learning that you have learned. Riding a bike, learning to sing, or all these different areas. This is the model where you need supportive environment. So what is the definition of homeschooling? In my opinion, homeschooling is when a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. So that means a supportive environment, a positive environment. Maybe it's quiet, maybe there's things going on, but that's my definition. Now, the ultimate goal is unschooling. Unschooling is 100% self-directed learning. So this might take 12 months, 24, 36 months, but it's different than what I call school at home. So if you start at, let's say your child's in the public school system right now, and I say the forced school system because I try to be as accurate with my language as I can. It's a mandatory system. It's a coercive school system, a disrespectful school system. And before I slam it more, my mother is a retired public school teacher. I have family members who are teachers and principals today. So I know there's loving, sweet people, wonderful people in the school system. However, you go back to the state organization and what Johann Fichte said in 1808, this system came from Prussia, Germany. He was a German philosopher. He said, education, the purpose of education is to break the will of the child so that they can't do anything other than what their teacher would imagine them to be as an adult for the purpose of the military. And that's a concise version. You can look up that quote or message me and I'll give that to you. So anyways, the system is coercive. So if your child's in the public school system right now, first of all, take a deep breath, okay? This is where we've all been. There's people there. Some, we come out of the public school system. We're not in terribly bad condition, but some of us are. And I got to tell you, the fear of failure is drilled into us. And if you look at any successful artist, musician, business person, anybody, is failure a part of life? Is making mistakes, is making errors a part of life? It is. It's a gigantic part of life. This is what Buckminster Fuller calls, this is why he calls children natural scientists. Because what do scientists do? Trial and error. Try and fail. Try and fail, try and fail, and then succeed. Right? So they're natural scientists. Pablo Picasso said that every child's a natural artist. And the challenge is to maintain that artist inside as they become an adult. So if your child's in the school system, it's totally fine. You can do this. Whether you're going to do it tomorrow, or whether it's going to be in 2 months or 6 months or a year, whatever your particular plan is, or if you don't have a plan, join the Facebook group. You can ask questions and engage there. So if your child's in the school system, you're going to want to remove them as soon as you can. It's my recommendation. And then de-school them. So the process goes from de-schooling, which is the decompression of all the stress, of all the superficial world of schooling, of bells, of just all this nonsense, strangers giving you assignments. Could you imagine as an adult if some strange adult came up to you and said, hey, you have to do this assignment and then I'm going to grade you on it and that's going to determine how you're going to be successful in life? You would take that assignment and you say, thank you very much, and you would throw it in the trash, wouldn't you? So this is the same situation. This world of stress is not existent in the real world of strangers giving you stuff. Now, in the working world, you get paid, you make money. This is natural, right? This is a voluntary relationship. So de-schooling is like, to the mind, what a Coke bottle is when you shake it up and you open it up and all the pressure dissipates, okay? There's all this pressure that your 7-year-old or 9-year-old or 12-year-old or 15-year-old, whatever, how old your child is, they're under because they think that the grades actually matter in real life. Now, when was the last time somebody asked you about your GPA in high school? When was the last time somebody asked you about your GPA in college? Somebody that actually was going to make an important decision about you. Very slightly. I have a college business degree. No one's ever asked my grades. No one's ever asked to see it or my high school diploma. None of that. And I worked hard and I thought it was a good thing. Okay. So the real world is what we're talking about now is to de-school, right? And the rule of thumb generally is for every year that they were in a forced school system, you want to give them a month of freedom. Okay. I know it's difficult. We'll talk about that here in a second. After deschooling, there's school at home. And this is where we take our school experience and we buy all these curriculums, you know, and the math and the language and all these divided subjects. And we say, well, it's going to be at 10 o'clock, we're going to do math. And then 11 o'clock, it's going to be, you know, language arts. And then it's going to be science. And you break up all these subjects, right? And I encourage you to leave that phase as quickly as possible, because it's not how the real world. The real world is holistic. The real world is in harmony, and it's very natural and smooth and flowing in terms of learning and following that interest. So you have deschooling, school at home, homeschooling, as I mentioned, is the atmosphere that you create, and then the unschooling, which is 100% self-directed learning. So the sooner you can get to unschooling, the better. But I find that the challenge is, first of all, spouses. Okay, it's difficult when mom's on board and dad isn't, or vice versa. Or when grandma and grandpa aren't on board, or sisters, or whatever it is. There's all these peer pressure. And so I want to start you off by asking this question: what do you desire for your child? Whether he's 3 years old or she's 8 years old, what do you desire? And I would say you probably want a happy, healthy, productive, or independent person, human being, by the time they're 16 or 18 or 20 or whatever that is, okay? So imagine that you have a piece of paper, okay? And if you're taking notes, feel free to write this down, right? So on the left side of the page, so I think this is the video, the left side, put your name. And on the right side, put your desires for your child on the right side. So you have your name and the desires for your child. And then right down the center, put a line, and next to the line, write what is keeping you away from those desires. Is the school system providing those types of desires for your child? What is it? Is it the school system that's there? Is it self-doubt? Is it fear? Is it indecisiveness? Family? Okay, and we'll get back to that here in a second. So begin to think about what you desire for your child, what's stopping you, and you're on the left side of the paper as well. Because ultimately, the child is depending on you. Your son or daughter, they need your love and support and acceptance, and you are perhaps focusing on the academic side. They're 6 years old and they don't learn how to read. They're 10 years old and they don't know how to read. Well, those things will come, okay? But the human being is developed. Remember, by age 3, 4, 5, they're just learning to urinate and defecate. They're not actually able to control their bodily fluids. And so by the time they go into kindergarten, they're asking, well, you have to get permission to go to the bathroom. Well, I can't hold it now. You know, now a lot of times they wet themselves, and it's a very embarrassing and sad situation. So those are the 4 basic steps. Now I can get into some of the curriculum here, but that's where I start off. The other part is to ask yourself, and if you want to throw a curveball to the teacher or the principal, you can ask them this question. But since we're talking about homeschool parents and people that are thinking about homeschooling, ask yourself, what is an education? And that might take some time. And I'll give you my definition here shortly. But what is an education? And I like the analogy of an education is like a healthy body. You cannot give a healthy body to somebody. Somebody who's overweight, you can't buy a 6-pack set of abdominal muscles for them. You can buy them a gym membership, but they gotta go to the gym and they gotta do the work. So when somebody says, I'm giving my child an education, I try to respectfully say, what you're doing is you're providing an environment where they can pursue an education for themselves if they want. Remember, you can have the best gym access in the world, but if you don't want to be healthy, are you going to go exercise? If it's not fun, are you going to go on the elliptical? Are you going to go pump iron? You're not going to do that. It's the same way with learning. For the first 4 or 5 years, your child loves learning. It's so much fun. But when they're in that building, it becomes less fun. So when you come out, homeschool them, you want to provide that space of fun and play. And even the first 8 years in, no, not Sweden, but in Finland, you're not even allowed to go to school for the first 8 years. They won't allow you because they want the children out there playing and actually experiencing and going through their senses, right? Just feeling the tactile, the touch, the smell, the hearing, the vocals, all these different ways of expression and receiving information. They're new on earth. They do not know what is happening. So they have to get familiar with these types of senses. So if they're playing for the first 8 years, 10 years, great. But I know it's going to be a challenge for you guys because, you know, we grade and we evaluate. All right. So this is the part, education. What is education? Education is what you do to yourself for a good life. And then this begs the question, what is a good life? Well, that's a whole nother conversation. What is a good life to you, to me, to your child? You know, this is a gift from the universe or nature or source or God, whatever you believe. Each of us own ourselves, own our life. And what is that? So you do it to yourself. It's not something that people can do to you. As John Gatto would say, that is a schooling, which is what somebody else does to you. And the state has their agenda that they want to push upon you and your child. So what is an education? The other part is, what is intelligence? They have IQ tests. They have intelligence quotients. So is that how you evaluate intelligence? Well, it measures pattern recognition. It matters, you know, identifying symbols, which is, you know, there's a gentleman at Harvard named Howard Gardner. He has a theory which has been around for over 20 years called the multiple intelligence theory. And it started with 7 intelligences, 8, and I think there's 9 of them now. So that would be maybe the analytical intelligence. Also, you have linguistic intelligence, mathematical intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, physical intelligence. And he goes through 9 intelligences. I said, wow, that's pretty interesting. But in my experience, nobody really asked me what I was interested in until I was in my 20s. They said, hey, Dave, what do you want to study? I never got that. It was always, here's what you got to do. Here's what you got to do. And then I started taking some transformational classes and courses, and they opened it up. And it actually, that's what led to the Education Options Expo. They said, what are you passionate about? What do you care about? It can be anything. And so this is the secret of designing curriculum for your child, a customized curriculum, because an education should be as unique as your fingerprints, as we mentioned. And there's 7 billion human beings on earth that we know of. So I think the curriculum should be customized, and that is the path of a truly educated person. So what is intelligence? Intelligence is when you move closer to self-selected goals. And then, according to Brian Tracy, stupidity is when you move away from self-selected goals. So if you're getting closer to your goals that you chose for yourself, you are acting intelligent. You are being intelligent. And if not, then you're being the opposite of intelligent. As harsh as the word stupidity sounds, this is what he says. So those are the questions you want to think about. What is an education? What is intelligence? What do I desire for my child? And then on your piece of paper, where you are there, what you desire for your child is, and whatever the barrier is. And then we want to ask, who put that barrier there? And the reality is that our children, they look at us and they model us. Our words can do great things. We can have great literature and great intentions, but our children are watching us. They're hearing us. They're learning about the world. Oh, that's how mom gets angry. Oh, that's what dad does when he's happy. This is how a family is. It's not conscious, it's in the subconscious, right? And this is what Bob Proctor says for the first 5 or 7 years, the child's pure subconscious mind. Their subconscious programming is getting downloaded by us, the parents, the family, the friends that we surround our children with. So that's kind of the fundamental basics there. I want to check in with Jackie, make sure we're doing okay. If you have any questions, I can get into some curriculum type there. I haven't been watching the comments here. So if you want to kind of comment, Jackie, how we doing? And do you want some questions, or do you want to jump into some of the curriculum here?
Yeah, doing great. So you know, in terms of our group, so here's the way that we look at it, is actually getting outside the system. So from our perspective, schooling is one of these things that keeps you hooked into the system, not just the K through 12, but also if, let's say, you go to college or university and you accept the resident tuition. So have you got any ideas for people that are older and maybe, here's one of the things. So it appears that you cannot have the credentials at the end of the day. Let's say you want the degree or the diploma or any of those other things. Now, K through 12, you provide some sort of certificate at the end, right? Like that they're finished, they're done.
Correct. Yeah, I do accelerated graduation with Valor Academy. I graduated a girl from Florida recently, 16-year-old from California recently. And the reason is that in California, and you can look online and find out local associations and how they do it. There's all these paper, again, the state is a fictional organization and they just use coercion. So sometimes you got to jump through the hoops. In California, you go online, it's called your private school affidavit, and you can start a private school, homeschool, and you can make your own rules. So in California, despite other political issues, homeschooling is relatively flexible and free, but the state doesn't like it because we're having these conversations. We're opening up the dialogue of what to do. And the other part of it is that the school gets money based on the attendance ratio. This is why it's mandatory attendance, and this is why there's truancy officers. So the truancy officer, well, sometimes you get a robocall or the school calls, hey, Susie wasn't at school today. Why do they care? Not because they're trying to get her education, but because they get money. When she checks off the roster and says, yes, Susie's here, then they get money. The district gets money from the state. And so when we're homeschooling or you don't have to homeschool, just pull your kids out and put them in a private school. That's scary for them. They lose money. And so the school system, the K-12 is over a $600 billion per annum budget. So it's a big time business, major business. So this is the recommendations there. There's different paperwork involved, but yeah, we can give them a high school diploma. There's a few requirements that I have in my school, but you can start your own and make your own requirements if you want.
And then in terms of military, because you mentioned about the military industrial complex, as I know I had a conversation with you, my son didn't go to school from 9th grade on, and we never heard about any signing up for military or anything. The school is the one that's actually turning kids in and trying to get them to sign up for the draft. So so that's a really good reason as well to not, if you're somebody who doesn't believe in that, then it's a really good thing to bring your kids out. Another thing is that parents don't realize, so if you consent to having your kids in school and you give them up to the school system, so to speak, then they become trustees of your child. And so now you have them disciplining your child, and you no longer have as much of a say in the things that they're disciplined for. And so a lot of parents find themselves in some trouble with their kids. And this is a great way of really removing the consent and removing them out of the system. So, and definitely the curriculum itself. I really love the holistic idea. So
right.
important.
Right. Well, exactly. So here's the thing is that, go ahead.
No, if anybody has questions, raise your hand and I'll call on you. Sorry, carry on. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So put some questions in the comments, or if you want to speak, feel free to let Jackie know, and she can monitor all that. So the challenge is that we see the forced vaccines in California and 4 other states have made it law, okay, to go to public school, you got to get injected with these questionable, in my research, poison, and autism causing, eczema causing, allergy causing, just toxic products that they know. And this is demonstrated in a lot of independent research, and the Center of Disease Control senior scientist, William Thompson, the whistleblower who came out, that was documented in the film Vaxxed. So you want to remove them, and you don't want them to go in the military by conscription. But there's still in between our heads, mom and dad's, there's the fear. And this is the reason I have the group, so you can actually overcome these things. I don't expect you to do it in this call, but maybe some of you have been thinking about it for 6 months or 12 months or whatever it might be, but you want to get to the point where you just say, okay, I'm going to get to the edge and I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to figure out how to fly on the way down. And then the hardest part is maybe the first 3 months, 6 months maybe of deschooling. But sometimes people get into it right away. They have support groups, there's associations, there's online groups. And now, because we're connected through this technology, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, these other, Pinterest, right, and a handful of other platforms, there's little tribes of homeschoolers and clans where people are gathering, sharing ideas. And some people don't like the world as the classroom curriculum, where you can learn anything from anybody, and they want more structure. Okay, well then guess what? This is your household. This is your child. And I don't even say the parents like own the child. I believe in the self-ownership principle. And as a parent, you are the guardian. You're the protector of your child. So if you choose to do that style, then more power to you. I think even if you just remove your child from the forced school system and do school at home, they're going to have a much better experience. Why? Because you love them. Because it's one-on-one or one-on-two or one-on-5, however many kids that you have. And you're going to be able to listen to their concerns. You can say, hey, there's the bathroom. You never have to ask to go to the bathroom again. I'm sorry that you're in the public school system. This is a terrible system. I didn't know. Please forgive me. There's a bathroom. So they'll have freedom to go to the bathroom, customized curriculum, love. Because here's the other part. The people who are going to be in your child's life, indefinitely are you, the parents, health, willing, and everything else. But you have a vested interest emotionally in their mind, in their life. The 12 years of compulsory school, those teachers, as I mentioned, some of them are loving and kind, some of them are witches and me's. They're going to see them for 9 or 10 months, and they'll never see them again. They have 5 classes a day, 25 to 30 students per class. They barely know your child's name without a seating chart, right? Like, it's so sad. This is what the challenging conversation is, because we hear such great things about public school. Well, guess what? They have a huge marketing budget. They have a huge advertising budget. So these television channels, radio stations, they get money from the school districts and the unions to get the message out there. So what they are, they're a marketing company, and they have persuaded mom and dad to give up their children for 12 years, even though you know nothing about these teachers. So that's kind of the setup right there. So each state has different requirements, and there's different organizations you can go out to find the requirements. Sometimes it's a piece of paper, sometimes it's a letter, sometimes like in Florida, you actually have to submit some type of curriculum, quarterly report what they're learning. And so this is why I love John Gatto, is because he showed us that you can have a curriculum with everything. Now, what does the word curriculum mean? The word curriculum comes from the root word meaning course or path. So each of us is on our own path. So along the path, I learned to do math. Along the path, I learned to write and read and do all these things. But when did I really need these things to make some money? Not much, not early. My first job was making pizza. When was your first job? Well, now we are at the major information technology where your child can start a YouTube channel, they can start a Facebook, they can start any type of TikTok, all these different types of apps. And I recommend that you do that, because what I tell the young people in my life and anybody who is open to the idea is that you are president of your own life. You are the CEO of your personal services corporation. You might work for a company for a few months, a few years, but you won't always work for the company. The world's changing so fast that you're going to be changing careers. I think the average career person has 9 to 12 careers, something like this. So what's the most important skill for success in the 21st century is learning how to learn.
Learning how to learn. Exactly. Yep.
And so this is why self-knowledge is the key awareness and consciousness to discover is, first of all, mom and dad, we are all on this self-knowledge journey of who am I, what do I like, what do I love, what do I hate, what am I curious about? Your child's on the same journey. So this is why when they're 4 or 5 years old and they're bouncing off the wall, you say, you know, you got a list of items to go to the grocery store with, and they're like, you say, okay, let's go to the car, we're going to the grocery store. They're like, yeah, I'm going to the grocery store. Why are they so excited? Because it's a good adventure. It's exciting. But for you, it's like, man, we got to get back for dinner, and dad or mom or grandma's coming over, whatever it is. So they love to learn, and that is the secret, to have the joy of learning, and then you can start asking questions. So I have the World of the Classroom curriculum. By the way, there's about 20 curriculums I designed in the Homeschool Leader group. You can just search the word curriculum and find some of these. But the second one, which is really powerful, is the question curriculum. The question curriculum encourages the asking of questions by your child. Now, don't get scared because you don't have to know the answer. When they ask you some genius level questions, some brilliant question, because they're all geniuses in their own way, they're brilliant. They're going to ask you some high level question. You say, that's a good question, honey. I don't know. Would you like some help to find that answer? Or do you just have a good question? Because all knowledge is just an answer to a question. And we now have the powerful internet, which is just 20 years old, by the way. You know, YouTube is just 10, 12 years old. Facebook, 10, 12 years old. These are all amazing new creations of technology that didn't exist. So what's going to happen in the next 5 years, the next 10 years? I don't know, but I want to be around positive, voluntary, moral people and have families and neighborhoods about that. And this is a different, group and concept, but the Voluntary Village Creators Group. Let's have a conversation about that, because the other part is that you don't want to be in your own bubble, right? You want to have other homeschool families, or what I call peaceful parenting families, where coercion is an option. And you understand, when you look at your 7-year-old, they're a new human being at life. They don't know how everything works. So rather than using violence or the actual intention there, you demonstrate it. You model it, because the real challenge is that mom and dad, we're still healing. We're still actually figuring out what it is to be a human being. So self-knowledge is the other aspect of it. The question curriculum, the purpose is to help them develop the question asking ability. Because by the time they're 8, 10, 12, they'll have the flexible muscles, the strong muscles, and then say, thanks, mom and dad. Now I'm going to go kind of live my life and pursue my own interests, if you allow them, depending on what kind of freedom you allow. But by the time they're 15, if they've been homeschooling for a good amount of years in an empowering, supportive environment, they're going to be ready to take on the world in whatever that capacity means to you. And the reason that's important is because they have energy, they have resilience. And by the time they're 20, 25, 30, 40, how's your resilience? How's your persistence? How's your enthusiasm? A lot of times we lose it because we've been drilled in the corporate world or in society or whatever it might be. But by helping them develop good question asking ability, they can actually learn to become self-teachers. And that is the goal, as I mentioned, self-directed learning, self-teachers. The other curriculum is called the action curriculum. And the purpose of the action curriculum is to help them take action. Because, as we mentioned, the relationship to failure and mistakes are very severe in the public school system. So if they start to become familiar with taking action and understanding the result doesn't reflect who I am. The result is just the result. Either it's a desirable result or it's an undesirable result. Because I am me, I'm a human being, and I believe in like infinite consciousness or some type of amazing consciousness. Something's happening. And if we can help them, and this is kind of personal, what you believe. What are you going to help them demonstrate? At least they're the embodiment of some smart, intelligent human being. I think that's probably a good universal description of what we are, and then to help them take action. So if they're 7 years old and they want to do a lemonade stand, don't do it for them. Ask them questions and see if they're going to take up the baton of leadership. Because, as I mentioned, if they're going to learn to direct themselves, they have to learn to lead themselves. So leading yourself is difficult. We have emotions, we have fears and concerns. So learning to do that is very important, taking action. And then if you support action, soon they'll become unstoppable. and then they'll try something, it'll fail. That won't stop them. Oh, that was interesting. That didn't work. Let's try something new. And they try it again. Oh, that was interesting. Didn't work. Try something new. And they'll keep going until they find a success. And whether that's business, relationships, health, invention, whatever it might be. You might be familiar with the story of Thomas Edison. He was being interviewed, and he invented the incandescent light bulb from electricity. And the interviewer asked him, you know, Dr. Edison, everybody says that you can't create light from electricity. It's scientifically impossible. And by the way, how many times have you failed? And Dr. Thomas Edison asked him, he said, son, you just don't know how the world works. I haven't failed 10,000 times. I have identified 10,000 ways which will not work, which means I'm 10,000 ways closer to finding the way that will work. And so that's the different mindset of the homeschool leader, the homeschool parent, that the failure isn't the outcome. It is actually the process of learning, because we are all on this path of self-learning, self-discovery, transition, growth, expansion, contribution, and mastery. And if you demonstrate that and help them understand that with your child, then they're going to say, oh, mom and dad are on the same path too. And this is the other part, which I love to share with parents, which is great, is that what learning project are you on? What are you learning in your life? Is it editing videos? Is it writing? Is it dancing? Is it something that you're excited about because you're going to come home and say, hey, honey, here's what I learned today. Here's what I'm learning. And they're going to say, oh, this is how a human being is supposed to be. And that's really up to their belief system and your belief system, but we're learning beings. So using the language, using the actual words of learning, they'll get that too. And this is the other curriculum, which, so first of all, what is the most important skills? Learning how to learn, okay? And then what? Learning how to express yourself verbally and orally if you can. So some people don't want to be, on a stage. They want to be in front of a camera. No problem. Learn to write, okay? Why? Because you can be a genius, which you are. Your child's a genius. They could have all these great insights and intuitions, but if they can't communicate that to the world, they're a genius locked in their own head. So the presentation curriculum is a curriculum, and the purpose of it is to help your child become confident and courageous in speaking in public, in presenting. Now, is it super complicated and difficult? No. What is it? When they're excited about something and they say, and you're busy, right? You're cooking, you're doing something else, you're doing your own work, you're learning, and they're 4 or 8, and they're just excited. Hey, mom, dad, I'm excited. I want to tell you something. That excitement, that energy is gold. Take a time out from what you're doing if you can. Make a note, leave what you're doing, focus on your child for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes and say, okay, honey, tell me why you're so excited. Oh, we did this, and the butterflies, or the ground, and the gravel, and the obsidian, or whatever, the computer coding, blah, blah, whatever it is. And you focus and you listen. And this is what, I think I can't remember, the author of Nonviolent Communication, he talks about giraffe ears and jackal ears. And giraffe ears is when you're focused and attentive. So give your giraffe ears to your son or daughter for a few minutes and let them just gush of that passion, of that expression. And they say, that's beautiful, honey. I'm so grateful that you shared that with me. I'm going to get back to work here. Is there anything else that you want to tell me before I get back to work? Oh, no, I just want to tell you that. Great. So what's happened? They had something they're excited about, and they presented orally to you. And then next time, maybe they're at a family gathering, or maybe they're with dad or uncle or sister, but you give them that a few times. And then when you're at some public place and they're like, oh, I want to get the microphone, or I want to talk and share my story, you're going to be like, okay, there's 30 people out here. It's like, I know, I can do it. I can talk. So by allowing them to present their ideas and speak about what they're passionate about, they're developing one of the most important things, which is the confidence, which is the self-talk of, I can do this, versus the self-talk of, I'm afraid to do it. I want to do it, but I'm afraid to do it. So again, this goes to self-talk. There's a great book from the 70s, maybe early 80s, what to say when you talk to yourself. So anyway, so those are some of the curriculum I designed. The main thing is to remove your child from the school system, define what education is, have these 4 stages, the world as a classroom curriculum, the question curriculum, the action curriculum, the presentation curriculum. And there's another one I think is important, and then I'll give it back to you, Jackie, is the relationship curriculum, okay? So in creating life that you love for your child and for yourself and helping them do that for themselves, right? As we mentioned before, you can't give somebody an education. You can facilitate, you can create an atmosphere, an environment, but they got to do the heavy lifting. And sometimes it's difficult. So in a relationship, what is important? Well, I would say respect is. And this is why the forced school system is so treacherous, is that the child is so disrespected. So in your homeschool, I would invite you to consider mutual respect. And there's a documentary film about a school in the UK. It's called Summerhill, 2008. It's about a school which has all voluntary curriculum, voluntary attendance, and they've been around for a long time helping students. It's a great film, and it shows you what the relationship, a respectful relationship is in an educational environment. And it's just helpful for some of the people who haven't been able to identify that for themselves. So what it is when you're demonstrating relationship in your life, for your spouse or your lover, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it might be, they are watching. So in relationships, we want to listen. We want to ask questions. We want to be interested, because we can have all the great stuff to say, but if they don't feel that we actually care about them, like we're trying to push our agenda on them, then they will reject it. So the purpose of the relationship curriculum is actually to develop the good relationship skills, and they do that by modeling. And then you can actually show them, hey, this is why I'm being this way with you, because I respect you and I want to hear your turn to talk, and it's my turn to talk. And so let's say you're talking with somebody and you're busy and they're being kind of that, hey, I want to show you something. You say, 1 second, honey, I'm talking with your father. I'm talking with grandma. Give me a minute and I'll get back with you. So just that you acknowledge them and show them that you didn't deaf hear them. You're not ignoring them. You're with somebody else. And so this is something that has been helpful as well, is that same thing in a relationship. They are young people, but they have a heart, they have emotion. And also, if you get your feelings hurt, you can speak truthfully with them. This is the other part, is I recommend my clients be as truthful as they can with their emotions, with what's going on in the house. If money's tight, if the health is declining, if there's a move coming, a job change coming, include them in the real world, because this is the advantage, is that the world is real when you're outside of the compulsory school system. And the sooner they can realize that, wow, life has a lot of responsibility, and mom and dad, they seem like they're really worried about this, or they're thinking about this, then maybe that's something that I can focus on as well. So those are some of the curriculum, some of the kind of guidelines there. Jackie, any other thoughts or questions here?
Yes, James has a question. Go ahead, James. Let me see where you are. Let me unmute you. Okay, you're unmuted. Hello, James.
So I have a.
Oops, where did you go?
You're a little bit choppy, James.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
I'll type it in the chat.
Okay, type it into the chat.
If there's any other questions out there, feel free to put them in the chat as well.
That's funny, I can hear you typing.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through the chat here, see if there's any outstanding questions. But anyways,
Go on.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
here it is.
Okay.
Dr. T, okay. Unless you've met David, don't make that assumption. Or, nope, it's a different one. Let's have a look. Will the government come to your house and inspect or require anything? Okay, go ahead.
They won't. And so I've been mentored by a gentleman who has had his own private school like this for over 25 years. They've never come to see his attendance records or his attendance policy, but state of California does require you have an attendance policy, and it requires that you have some kind of attendance or curriculum. And so the attendance policy, as I mentioned, is the world is the classroom. That's my attendance policy. So they're always in school. They're always in my school. And this is all, there's no legal stuff. Like I said, California is a little bit lax because if you start to put legal stuff on the homeschool families, we come out of the woodworks. And whether you're religious or atheist or whatever it is, when you start going after the children's minds for homeschoolers, because there is no refuge from homeschooling. If these political criminals make laws against homeschooling, then they can just come knocking and doing that. But right now, James, I just filed that private school affidavit, and if you have less than 6 students, you're not going to be a threat to their system. But you do want to have something on paper that says, here's our attendance policy, and here's our curriculum policy, and then that will fend off any type of trouble that they might come and knock for. But in terms of CPS, not a problem. CPS is more going after vaccine type situations, but in that case, you just want to video record these people. If you have 2 people there, the better, and calm yourself in dealing with them. And I can't remember the name of the book. I think it's Kidnapped, but there's a book by Carlos Morales. He was a former CPS investigator, and he goes through on how to deal with CPS when they come. But effectively, it's, without a warrant, I can't let you in. You stay calm. And there's also a great video of a guy just dealing with cops saying, "I don't answer questions. If you don't have a warrant, I don't answer questions." So that's the essence there. And each state has their own little things. But in California, I think you're in California, James. I'm pretty lax. Some states like Texas don't require anything. So there's nothing to file. You just pull your child out and say, "We're homeschooling, see you later." And so there's some states that are really friendly. In Florida, I had a client, and they are super, legislative, or I should say, bureaucratic. And so he had to make a letter. And so I said, you want to make sure they got the letter, get some confirmation on their side, make sure the email was received and get a confirmation from them. And then you got to send them a quarterly report. But it really goes to the fundamental question that any principal, I've asked this question, any superintendent, any politician, I said, so what is an education? And you pose that question to them, because here's the word they're going to ask you. Well, every child deserves a quality education. I agree. Every child deserves a quality education. But what is that, Mr. Politician? Tell me, can you please define what a quality education is? They can't. They have standardized test scores, even the SAT tests. The colleges don't even look at that. This is another conversation, how to get into college. As John Gatto demonstrated, these admissions directors at Harvard and I think it was Princeton, he had personal conversations with, this was verified by other people, is they look for a track record of distinction. They want to know, is this student going to become famous so we get more marketing and branding out there for our school? Where did he go to school? He went to Harvard. Or is this person going to be wealthy? Are they going to become rich and they can donate a bunch of money to us? The funny story about Warren Buffett is that when he was 18 years old, he applied to the Wharton School of Business, and they rejected him at age 18. He had already had 7 businesses on his way to becoming one of the wealthiest men on earth, and they rejected him at age 18. So I think they learned from that. And so this is the other part of having a social hobby, a physical hobby, and an intellectual hobby. This is also what they look for. So there's little hacks that Gatto is just a wealth of information. Check out his YouTube channel as well. But the greatest fear, and there's a video that he made called "Your Fear is Their Power." We far outnumber them. Is regarding the tax situation as well. There's a video by Larkin Rose called "The Tiny Dot," where he shows how many taxpayers there are versus how many IRS agents. And it's so incredible. And this is what I mentioned, the Johann Fichte quote, 1808. He said, the goal is to get people so conditioned and habit trained that they police themselves. So you don't need a physical ruler. You don't need the actual police out there with guns and threats and the bayonets back in the day. We want to train them so they're so afraid And this is the training that I felt too. You know, I'm still going through, I'm in my 30s, you know, and so becoming courageous, becoming unstoppable, that's what they fear. And so this is why homeschooling is in the crosshairs. And, you know, for the vaccines and all this global domination and enslavement is what they're after. And if the children stay in the school, then they're virtually going to become harmless, toothless, declawed, defanged. But if you remove them and empower them, then it's possible they're going to become an Elon Musk, or they're going to become some powerful inventor, creator, musician. And from that, you know, you can start your own movement, an evolution or a revolution or a transformation. And they don't want that. They're a control freak, a bureaucratic organization. And so when you start removing your children from these schools, that scares the heck out of them. So actually, James, we shouldn't fear them. They should fear us. And they do. And they do. The teachers union, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And this is why their official numbers is 2 million homeschoolers, but other numbers show as much as 4 million, even up to 6 million. Because what do you do about the homeschoolers in Texas that they don't even register? What about the unregistered? Yeah, yep. They don't register. So there's more. So I think that the number should be, you know, just continually increasing, especially with these forced vaccines laws. But mom and dad, it's really about you guys defining what education is, starting what you desire for your child, and then linking up with other people on this call, people in my Facebook group, people in other groups. There's a lot of support out there. Find people that you align with, but really take that leap. I recommend you, and you can do it. It's done millions and millions of times before, and it's actually the de facto way to become educated. You know, from before 1852, where it was mandatory attendance in Massachusetts, and by 1918, every state in the Union had mandatory attendance laws. But what they did before that, it was all basically a schoolhouse, the mixing of ages, the mixing of curriculums, the mixing of trades and apprenticeships, and that's a whole other conversation. But forced schooling is the anomaly and abnormal, unhealthy. It's homeschooling, self-directed learning, which has been proven, and we just forgot about it because they don't teach us that. So consider looking at the history of the school system as well.
Okay, there's a question from WT Knight. Where are you? Can you unmute yourself? Let me see if I can find you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Art, and I'm a recovering product of K through 12 plus 5. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for sharing the great information, Dave. What are your thoughts on physical education and or athletics in the homeschooling realm?
Yeah.
Yep. So everything is negotiable. So if you have a child who says 10 or 12 years old and they have a real talent for soccer, for baseball, for music, whatever it might be, and they're not officially in the school system, what you do is, first of all, that has to be true, right? They have some type of talent, and not just like they're interested, but they actually have shown something like they want to do this, right? And they want to contribute. Well, the schools, they love when a star comes out of their choir or a star comes out of their sports teams. So you go talk to the principal, you go talk to the athletic director, you go talk to those guys mainly, because it's a little bit of localized control there, and say, hey, here's a video of my daughter, you know, singing, or a video of my son playing sports, and he'd like to come, you know, play with your team. So if he believes that they will be an addition to the team, he's going to say, all right, well, sign this little document, join in, and we'll make some type of arrangements, because when he gets a state championship or a district championship, that's my team, that's his glory. Hey, the principal, guys. So it turns into something that's benefiting him. So there is that possibility. There's even homeschool like athletic leagues that exist. You know, you can search those as well. But these things do exist, and it's just a matter of reaching out and becoming creative in our own right. Right. The important thing is to realize that this organization, the state, the county, they're just pieces of paper. I don't know if you guys have ever started your own corporation. You send it to the state, and they send it back, and they say, congratulations, you have a corporation. You say, where is it? It's right here. Oh, there's an EIN number on there. I guess I have a corporation. That's what they are too. What the real thing is the human beings. We are the living flesh and the breathing, and so we interact, we have relationships, and if this principal says, wow, your son's great at soccer, man, we'd love to have him on the team, then that's how you open it up. So start with the conversation, and I would just try to build a positive relationship with these people. Generally don't want to throw the school system under the bus like I have just done, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is to help you understand what is at stake, what is happening in these schools, so that you can understand the urgency, so you will remove them from them if you want to do that.
So, sometimes we get people, you mentioned CPS. So when I removed my kid from school, I did one step further and I also moved county. Now, when I moved county, he never existed anywhere. So I didn't have to unregister him or anything. I just never registered him in the new place. And of course, nobody knew where we were. It's not like hiding out or anything. You just don't go and register anywhere. And so, for people that are worried about the kickback from anything, that is another simple solution to do. Well, it's actually not that simple for a lot of people, especially if you own a house, but it is a solution. What's more important, your child or, being in the system? And to me, my child was way more important and my family was more important. So anyway, what about for higher education? Because I know there are people, and the pieces of paper, a lot of people think these pieces of paper mean everything. And I know you kind of said, nobody's asked you for your pieces of paper. So, it's another thing to emphasize for people is those things just don't matter. A lot of people are self-taught. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the equivalent to a college degree or a high school diploma, high school diploma is pretty low level. That's, I think, pretty well accepted. It's like you have a high school diploma, whoop-de-doo. Okay. We want a college degree. So a college degree, it used to be like required by all these corporations. And now, I think Apple, IBM, maybe Microsoft, there's a slew of giant corporations that no longer require a college degree. Why? Because a lot of smart people don't have college's degree and they're missing out on all that talent. Like any organization, expanding organization, growing organization needs new talent, needs new blood. So they're always recruiting, hiring. So they no longer require a college degree or diploma. What I recommend for my families is that you document your success. And that is distinctions, achievements, certificates, basically a portfolio of your work. And this is why I mentioned the importance of the presentation curriculum, writing well, speaking well. If you're a writer, have a blog. If your child's interested in speaking, have them do a YouTube channel or maybe a podcast. And so when they go, well, I don't recommend people have jobs if you can, really see yourself as a CEO. You want freedom, right? They say the secret of happiness is freedom and the secret of freedom is courage. And so to have that portfolio of work, whether written or verbal on a podcast or a video on a YouTube or a Vimeo account or a TikTok, or maybe they're a comedian and they do some stuff like that. That way, instead of showing them, hey, here's my piece of paper, you say, hey, here's my portfolio of the work that I've done. And they say, oh, and they read it and say, wow, okay, I understand that. In fact, it's a funny story. I met a billionaire a few years ago, and he's actually on my education options channel. And I said, sir, how would somebody come to work for you, right? And he's a very humble, nice guy. And he said, well, I would recommend they read these books, 2-3 books, and then write on a blog what those books mean to them and how to trade. He was a mining trader, hard metals. And so he said, have them write for, a few weeks, a few months, and then send me what they wrote. And so he would actually go through and look at what they wrote. And he said, after you have a following of, I think he said 10,000 people, maybe it was 5,000. He said, I'll show you how to turn those followers into clients, and then you can work with me. And so it was, again, kind of what we're talking about is you prove it, you demonstrate it, because these symbols or signals of success and achievement of college degrees, they're not useful. They're not indicative anymore. Now it's like, what can you do, right? This is the other part of achievement is to do something. And so, again, back to intelligence, to do something which brings you closer to your goals. So those are the recommendations. Higher education, if you do have some ambitions to go to Harvard or, the top Ivy League colleges, then as I mentioned, some of the hacks to get through the admissions office there, genuine hacks, right? Because they're looking for you. They are in business. This is a money-making business. The chairman or what you call the dean, they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Where's that money coming from? You know, so they got to get it from the tuition. They got to have a good brand. And just like Mercedes is a brand, Harvard is a brand, so is Princeton, so is, you know, everything else out there. And that's what you want to do, is demonstrate it. And this is the other part about like Harvard. Let's say your child gets accepted into Harvard, then they don't even need to go to Harvard, because now they can say, look, here's my acceptance letter. I got into Harvard, but I didn't want to go to Harvard. So just putting that on the resume, say I was accepted into Harvard and I chose not to go to Harvard. They're like, you're hired, you know, come in as a junior partner, come on in whatever it is. And this is what's so important, is now people want the authentic message, the truth message. So it's really important to find out what you love to do, or your child, what does your child love to do? What are they interested in? Because once they're excited about it, and it could be about geology or coding or something that, you know, isn't my passion or your passion, but it's theirs, and they're saying, this is the minerals, or this is the chemical compounds, or whatever it is, and you're like, you sound excited, so that sounds interesting to me, so you must really care about it. And then they can start their own companies, partner up with people, team up, join companies, or consult. You know, consultants make good incomes as well, and have a little bit of freedom in their career too.
So one of the things I noticed, I had another child. I have 4, by the way. So the one we were talking about was my youngest. My third one actually graduated from college. And the thing I found really interesting during graduation, as a parent going there, is literally the first 30 minutes was the college patting itself on the back. They were saying, we are recognized by other colleges. We have exchange students that come from other colleges. Other colleges accept our transitional students. I mean, this is what they went about. We had one student that was hired by Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey recognizes our credentials. We have one woman that works like in London somewhere in some really amazing company. London recognizes our university. And you know, after about half an hour of hearing this, oh, I'm so great, look how great I am. Then of course they say, now here's these children, and we want you all, or there's our students, they're no longer the children there, here's our students. We want you all to stand up and recognize their achievement. And that's when I kind of went, oh, you kind of realize that whole thing. So, you know, and that's part of the reason I wanted you on here, David, because I recognize what you're doing. So that's the main part right there. We need to start recognizing homeschooling and the certifications that we give each other. Go ahead, Yvonne. Hello, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Are you there? Did you have a question? Maybe not. Okay, does anybody else have a question? I keep hearing, oh, Mike had a question. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's kind of like not so much a question, but I want to augment things David have said, and I really want to commend him on his genuine enthusiasm and passion for the subject matter, because we need people like that to go out there and bring this to light for people. But I'm sure you've all heard it so many times that there's all these hospitals and institutions and all about saving the children, saving the children. Well, you know, God damn it, I'm one of the children that they didn't save, and you are too. And that's my point, is that we neglect to look at each other as adults at any age and realize we all need to have to learn from, okay? And we have so much to offer. And you talk about the value of education as it is, in truth as to what is required. I want to bring a little point. It's been about 8 years ago, maybe now, or maybe 10, I don't even know. But there was a major bridge that got blown up with a gas truck over in San Francisco Bay Area here. And it shut down the whole Bay Area essentially. And that bridge had to be built at record speed in order that it didn't shut down all the commerce in the Bay Area. There was only one man who was qualified to do the job, and he did it in phenomenal time. He was the only one who would take on the job. He only had a 6th grade education. But he knew what he was doing. And the reason he knew what he was doing is because he learned from imitation. And this is one of the key elements that people don't understand about what education is and how people, not so much education, but how we learn, how we all learn. And this is at the essence of the formidable years, but on through our life. We learn by imitation and mirroring. And if you don't know how to do something, well, what do people do? They go to the internet, man, they find something, and then they try it. And that's imitation, the most profound form of flattery, in a sense. But it's through that process. So what a teacher needs to do, if there's such thing as a teacher, is provide the opportunity to say, hey, watch this and see what you think. And give the kid to say, wow. And what's really missing sociologically is the parental engagement of exposure to the profound world we have. When I was a child, and all through college and junior high, I don't know what they do now in school. I didn't just go on with that. But I went to every museum in the West Coast. I was totally flabbergasted. I meant from see parks and all kinds of nifty things. But all these influences made a big difference in my appreciations of things and gave me a sense of directive of appreciation, so much to create a passion in my life. And this is what children and young people and people alone are missing in their life, is a passion. So many people wander around with a job instead of a passion. And that passion is what's really, really important that we embrace in life. And if you've ever even conceived of the idea of saying like, God, I wish I could play a piano like that or play a guitar like that. Well, what's stopping you from picking one up? It's one note at a time. And I've learned since I started my crusade of life, essentially, in a certain passage when I was in college, I was booking more time doing what I loved than I did in college, which was another love, which was the art world. I was booking more time in climbing. So I climbed Yosemite walls, I climbed Denali, I climbed all the 14,000 foot peaks in the Western United States. And that gave me that sense of, I can do anything. And you can do anything, but if you don't, and if people aren't given the chance to taste that, to grab that flavor in their life, they're not even aware of who they are, how they are, or why they are. And it's kind of like a lot of people go around right now, and it's been going on for this whole phenomena what we're in right now, wondering who they are. Well, I got that solved. My only question now is, what am I really? What am I? And so all this is leading me to that channel to learn. And it's a joy. I mean, I every day I wake up in some form of like, wow, there's good stuff to do today. I just wish I could get myself out of bed. But there's an interesting thing. I'll just say this as a final little note. Arnold Schwarzenegger does a commencement speech. It's on YouTube. You can find it. And one of the most fun and enthusiastic thing I think he said in it, he said something to the effect that, I have heard every excuse in the world for not succeeding. And he says, the one I can't understand is when people say, well, I don't get enough rest at night. I don't sleep long enough or whatever. He says, and all he says is, well, sleep faster. In other words, if you got something to do and if you've got a focus in your life, don't be spending it in bed. Get the hell out of bed and start doing what it is that your passion is. And look what happened to him. Unbelievable. This guy's a phenomenal reference for us all to see what a human being can accomplish for himself. And so anyway, that's the point on education I want to say is we need to provide moments that everyone can experience something so phenomenal that it excites their passion. And then the learning is going to come just like a waterfall. You won't be able to stop them. And I love kids like that, because if they find something enthusiastically driving them, let them go. Get an empty room, throw a piano in, and throw the kid in the room and walk away. Believe me, they'll learn how to play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks,
Put
Blue.
Yeah. One of the points here that is a challenging question for people is, how do you find your passion? And the truth is that nobody can find it for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my mentors, he said, because I was a business focused, right? My original dream was just to make a lot of money and sit on the beach and just relax and enjoy my life. And then I found out that I have a life to live. And he said, okay, let's say you made $10 million. What are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. So it took me a few years to really identify that. And so also I was in the dental field for a while. There were dentists. Dentists love their practice, their art form, right? Working on teeth. And so they would sell their practice after 25, 30 years, make a few $1 million, and then they would go travel the world and golf for a year or two. But you know what happens after that? They get bored because they forgot to do something with themselves, you know, in retirement. And so this is the real thing, is what are you going to use for your life, you know? And so just like this phone has a purpose, the headset I have has a purpose, your life has a purpose. And so this goes to the purpose curriculum, right? I have one of those as well, where you have the intention to help them discover their purpose. You can't give it to them. This is something they have to discover for themselves, just like you discover that you're a human being with emotions and love and fears and insecurities and, you know, other types of egoic type things. So what would you do if you had $10 million in the bank? And now children don't know the concept of money, you know, for the first 5, 7, maybe 8 years of life, but you want to help them understand that too, right? This is the other point, is the helping them understand that it costs money. And if you feel confident, you can show them the budget that you have, you know. There's a great book called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Talks about the beliefs of money. Money's just energy. It's not a real thing. It's a concept. So if you are in scarcity mindset, then money's hard and difficult. But abundance, and this is what I got from another mentor. He said, and this is the kind of adapted version. He said, if there was a scientist, a really wealthy scientist who's 95 years old, but they're blind, and they came and gave you an offer, and they said, you know what, Dave or Jackie, hey, would you sell me both of your eyeballs? Pluck those things out and I'll buy them for you. Just name the price. You know, would you sell both your eyeballs? Would you sell your ability to see for $1 million? Would you sell the ability to see for 5 million, for 100 million, for $1 billion, $5 billion? For me, and this is a question for you to think about if you want, is I wouldn't sell my eyeballs for all the money in the world. I like being able to see, you know? So in the same way, how much more valuable is your hearing, is your tongue for tasting, is your actual physical organs? So much. We're already wealthy. So children know this. But as adults, we got to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, pay the bills, blah, blah, blah. And we get caught up in these numbers, these figures, the accounting, and we forgot, wow, we're alive, we're living, we have infinite value, infinite worth. And so with that, you can go out and create great things. You can go and attract great things. And can you imagine a 10-year-old knowing how valuable they are? And people try to come up and say something, just like, no, I'm a valuable person. You know, this is who I am, right? So there's different ways to look at the life that we're being given and understand our value. What would you do if you had all the money in the world? What would you do if you had $10 million? You still have a life force to give. And in my research and conversations with extremely successful people, is they want to leave a legacy. They want to leave the world a little bit better than when they got here. They want to have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more benefit and goodness for the children. And sometimes it's not leaving them money. You know, there's a book called The Ultimate Gift, where a very wealthy man, he ruined his children by giving them all this money, but then he left nothing to his nephew, and the nephew became a great man because he didn't learn about money. He learned about gratitude. He learned about compassion. He learned about empathy and drive and setting goals and these types of things that have real value for life. And so, you know, life is a lifelong learning thing, and we know that now. And this is not something that ends. And I'll leave with this final point. I do have to jump to another call here, Jackie.
Yeah,
but
sounds great.
When we have a high school commencement or a college commencement, commencement means to start, to begin. But you know why they're throwing their hats off and they're excited? They're like, yeah, I finished. No, you didn't finish. You're starting.
You're just starting.
Because They're just starting. It was there's so much drudgery and so much just laborious effort in their high school, in their college experience. They think, I finally got this piece of paper that's going to guarantee me success. Well, this is another conversation. You got to define what success is. Coach John Wooden, the great visionary and great teacher, said that success is peace of mind, which is a direct result out of self-satisfaction, knowing that you made the effort to become the best of which you are capable. So that's his definition. I like it. Some people say success is progression towards a worthy goal. I think that's pretty good too. If it's money for you, great. If it's love for you, great. If it's fulfillment, if it's giving to charity, you want to define that for yourself. I recommend you do that for your children, because the really exciting thing is that you can create it. We are creators, and rather than trying to find ourselves, we actually create ourselves. And this is such a powerful perspective for young people to get, is you can really be anything because you create yourself through your language and through the people that you surround yourself with. So I always recommend them. If you have anybody negative in your ear, try to delete those people. You don't have to like kick them out of your life, but maybe don't pick up their calls or don't go hang out with them. But life is too short to be around negative energy vampires, because it's amazing to be able to speak and communicate and live and feel and touch and go out and dance and sing or swim. I'm a big fan of swimming, but it took me a few years to realize I miss swimming. I was raised in the mountains and the trees, and now it's like I missed it. I want to go yesterday, and I want to go today, but it's a little bit too cold today, so I can't. So I'm finding out what that is for you and kind of meandering, and more importantly, creating an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. There's nobody who can tell your child what they need. You know them best. You have a vested interest in their happiness and their health and their excitement and independent livelihood. And so they're going to model you. As the gentleman mentioned, imitation is a really powerful learning tool. The 4 steps of learning are demonstration, imitation, explanation, and repetition, and practice and practice. And the great question is, somebody was in downtown New York, and they said, hey, I'm lost. I'm questioning, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And he said, practice. So there is no failure, really. It's just the result. Detach from that outcome and realize it's a lifelong thing. And as long as your child feels loved and they know they're loved unconditionally, you have that connection of trust. So no matter what's going on in their life, they can say, you know what, mom, dad, uncle, auntie, guardian, I appreciate you, and here's what's going on. I'm afraid, I'm excited, this is what's up. And then you can have a real relationship, because success, again, you define it, money, whatever, but love, connection, fulfillment, maybe leaving a legacy. I encourage everyone to consider that, and feel free to join my Facebook group, Homeschool Leader. We have some videos on YouTube as well under the same name, Education Options TV. If you want to hire me, you can do that. Do some homeschool consulting. I help you understand more about apprenticeships. We didn't touch much into that, but I'm writing a book about apprenticeships. But the future is unknown and uncertain, but it's hopeful. And you got someone like Jacquie here and Art and other people here supportive in the community. This is where it's at, to find a supportive network of human beings that you can trust and have good intentions and good morality, and hang around these people, So this is my recommendation. The last thing, you saw this note in the back, I might as well mention it, Evolve. I'm co-producing and running the family camp stage in Acapulco. It's an event in February in Acapulco. It's all about freedom, cryptocurrency, advocacy, health, the hacks of health. And you can get 10% off the ticket if you put in the code VALOR, VALOR. We're expecting over 3,000 people this year. All about freedom, all about getting out of the matrix, all about empowerment, love, trust, freedom, everything like that. So I want to thank Jacquie for inviting me on the call, and hopefully you guys got some good ideas, some good solution, and maybe I'll join you guys for round 2 sometime.
All right. Thanks a lot, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacquie. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. And I'll post the recording. I'll send it to you. Bye.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you very much, David.